Hey guys, welcome to another video, Purple Political Talk here, and today we have another episode of our Purple Projections podcast with our friend UEP, and we're doing something very interesting today. So UEP, do you want to introduce the video and just say hi to your subscribers?
Hi subscribers, thank you so much for joining me for today's video. So this is what everyone seems to like to do. It's kind of a trend a couple months ago, but we figured why not do it. So this is the, everyone's favorite prediction. Let's Talk Elections versus Red Eagle Politics. And before you guys comment that Let's Talk Elections is technically a Republican, he said that in 2017. He may be a Republican. I don't know. I think his views have changed a little bit since then. And he definitely does lean to the left of Red Eagle. That's 100%. So for the sake of simplicity, we're going to have LTE as a Democrat and Red Eagle as a Republican.
So we're going to look at these races, and it's not about who we think has better predictions or who has more support in each state on a YouTube level, but whose message would go out on a broader scale and be a lot bigger at the nationwide level, and who electorally has an advantage with the message they're trying to show. So we're going to look at this and a lot more in this video. Please make sure you're subscribed to both Purple Political Talk and UEP to be up to date with our latest content. So let's get started by filling in our safe states for both Red Eagle Politics and Let's Talk Elections.
All right.
So do you want to explain some of them, and then I'll explain some of them?
Sure. So I will explain. Okay. Let me just fill these out. These are the safe states that would go to each candidate by, basically double digits, maybe more, 12, 13, 14, 15 points. So 178 safe electoral votes for LT, and I'm leaving Oregon blank because of the fact that Red Eagle, he thinks it's very competitive, so he'd campaign there. And and the rest are usual safe states. Purple, anything to say?
Yeah, I also forgot to mention, since this is not a super realistic prediction in the sense that the electoral map and geographic trends will look a lot different. So we try to do it a little bit more in the future. This is not 2024, it's 2020, but we try to use the 2024 map to kind of project what it may look like, or I think it's actually the 2020 map.
Yeah, this is, but it
doesn't
really
matter.
Map.
So I'm correct. So this essentially is not realistic because, again, two parties have set their nominees and they can't even run for president until a later time. So this is just take it with a grain of salt, of course. Chances of this actually happening are quite low. So,
0.
Take it with a grain of salt. So generally speaking, I think that looking at this map, we can tell where LTE's strong points are, and that is the Northeast. He has that northeastern appeal. He's from Maryland, and he gives that general area of the country a lot of appeal, especially the Atlantic coast. And essentially, like he said, Oregon and then parts of the Southwest are becoming more competitive, but trending Democratic. So we're looking at things like right now, and So let's fill in the Republican safe states at this time.
So the states for Red Eagle.
So Red Eagle's gonna do very good with Republican safe states because he is, I think, the equivalent of a Trump-like Republican. If he ran for president on a national scale, I think his message would go out to a similar base of where Donald Trump's base is currently. And I think, honestly, that might help him in certain areas of the country where, Trump is somewhat popular. So are those all these safe states for the Republican Party?
Yeah. So there are a few calls that I want to clear up. First of all, LTE does think that Utah and Montana will be competitive. Not competitive, but he thinks that they will be likely for the GOP, which is why he'll campaign there, say we have a chance of winning these states. However, Red Eagle is from the Rust Belt. He's from Michigan, so I think he would have a lot of appeal to the voters in Indiana and Missouri, which are states that are usually likely Republican states, but I'm going to give them to him by a safe margin. And Kansas, of course, LTE is famous for saying Kansas will be likely Republican, and I think he'll campaign there and, maybe have some rallies with Laura Kelly, so yeah.
So at this point we can see where are the regional advantages for each candidate, especially, for LTE it's technically the Mid-Atlantic up, and for Red Eagle Politics it's essentially parts of the Midwest as well as the upper Midwest, a little bit west of Minnesota, so that general area that's always Republican, and I think his message will go and resonate with the voters in that area. So essentially, our starting off map is 92 electoral votes for red equal politics and 178 for let's talk election. So, why don't we talk about now are some of the likely states for the Republican Party?
Okay. Now, Oregon, red equal campaign there, but it's still a blue state, and he knows that at heart it will go to LTE. So, it'll be closer than normal, but it will go to LTE. New Mexico and Colorado, they're blue states, could be safe, could be likely, but we all know that they're going to be Democratic states. Now, interestingly enough, I do think that Virginia, well, not too interesting, but I think that Virginia could actually be safe, LTE being from Maryland and being a moderate type candidate, independent Democrat, even kind of like a Charlie Baker type Republican maybe, or more of a, maybe an Amy Klobuchar type Democrat, kind of centrist. I think that would have a lot of appeal to Virginian voters. I also think he'd do well in New Hampshire, winning it by a likely margin. Overall, I would characterize New Hampshire as an LTE state, being from the Northeast, being moderate. New Hampshire does tend to like moderates. When you think of Jean Shaheen, Maggie Hassan, Chris Sununu, New Hampshire likes moderates, and I think they would reflect that with LTE. Now, the one controversial call I have here is I'm going to label Nevada as a likely state. And I generally, in my predictions, have it as a lean state for the Democratic Party, but I'm going to give it to LTE by a likely margin. I don't think that Red Eagle would be able to resonate well with the moderates in Nevada, especially their large Latino population. So I think it would go to LTE by a likely margin.
Yeah, so with the likely states, I'm going to have to agree with most calls. I would maybe call Nevada for the lean margin for LTE. At the end, since we have different maps, but we're doing this map together to show kind of our net feeling, we're going to show both my map and his map a little bit at the end and just change out the states so you guys can see what Purple Political's Red Eagle map against LTE looks, and then what UEP's map look. But essentially it's looking very, at this point, that these are states where, LTE has a lot of support, and Virginia, I think, would be a lot higher for him, just because of, at least in margin-wise, because of him being from that mid-Atlantic region, which tends to support moderate people, especially because there's a lot of suburbs around his home state of Maryland and Virginia, which share, the same circle and things like that. So, yeah, other than that, I agree with mostly everything you said. So, I want to explain now the likely Red Eagle states at this point. So, if you could fill those in. So, at this point, these are all states I would say that either one, just minority turnout in certain areas would lower the margins from the Republican parties, whereas they could have been safe, gone down a little bit, or that LTE would probably campaign here if he had the chance to. And essentially, what are we looking at here? I think Alaska, very, very, a state that it has trending a little bit more liberal. So for that reason, I would say that it's going through and probably narrowing down the margin. Montana, Utah, and Kansas, these are states where LTE would probably campaign if he had the chance to. Maybe think he could contest them, which he might be able to contest them, but maybe not swing them. I think here, it's going to be a Red Eagle victory by around 5 to 7, maybe 10 points, I think, would be a little bit more accurate. The South African American support is sky high during this election, and although Republicans in general have somewhat been gaining with African Americans, essentially with Red Eagle politics, I think that he would kind of perform on par where Trump is, at least in the South, and that would be kind of where we're looking at, maybe 10 to 12%. And in the state of Ohio, it's a Republican state, and they like someone like a Red Eagle politics. He appeals to those voters. He's a Republican from the Midwest. And that appeal, I think, would really help him in the state of Ohio. Maybe win it by 6 or 7 points. At most, probably more like 5 or 6. So those are all our likely states for Red Eagle politics. UEP, what do you have to say?
Yeah, so all of these states could, I think all of them except for Ohio, have the potential to be safe. But I do think that they'll be likely considering LTE being more moderate. He has the ability to win over voters in a state like South Carolina or Alaska, for example, where there are a lot of independent type voters. Same with Montana, not a down ballot state, as we know, kind of looking like they're going to vote for Trump at the presidential level and elect 2 Democrats, and they're going to have 2 Democrats to the Senate. Looks like that, not 100%, but it looks like they're going to elect Steve Bullock. And at the governor's race, it looks like they're going to elect Mike Cooney. But I think it'd have appeal to those voters who are kind of like, well, I'm a Republican, but I voted Democrat before, so I think that could make it a bit more narrow than it usually would be. Ohio, this could very well be lean, but I think it'll barely slip into the likely column, Red Eagle being just north of Ohio from Michigan, having a Rust Belt appeal, kind of like a Trump-type candidate. Trump won't win Ohio by as much as he did in 2016, but he's still a pretty strong candidate for a state like Ohio. So those are our likely states. Now, we're going to move on to our lean states for Let's Talk Elections, and I'm only, right now, there's only one lean state for me, so I'm going to say that's the state of Arizona, where LTE being very moderate, Arizona loves moderates, as we know. Jeff Flake was a moderate conservative type guy. They liked him until he retired, and they like Kirsten Sinema. She's very moderate. In fact, she might be the most moderate Democrat in the Senate, other than Joe Manchin. And it looks like they're going to elect Mark Kelly to the U.S. Senate this time, so they like moderates. And I think that they reflect that with LTE. Now, it would still be contested, and I do think that both candidates would make a play for Arizona, but I do think LTE has the edge here. So those are my only lean states for LTE.
Yeah. So with the state of Arizona, I'm going to have to agree with you here. I think that since they like someone more moderate, I mean, not like Red Eagle politics is radical or anything, but just that LTE is a lot more moderate, he would definitely get a big basket of votes. Where do I think Red Eagle could improve a little bit where Trump goes? Or get a similar, the similar growth Trump is probably going to get in Arizona. It's going to be the southern border, so the southern counties, which even you saw the big change in the midterms where they went to Trump narrowly by maybe a couple points. In the midterms, they went by, if I'm correct, almost 6-7 points, which is a hefty margin that would get your margins up statewide. However, I think the support for moderates for LT will trump that and essentially give him the victory statewide in the state of Arizona by a lean margin, more likely like 2 to 3%. So let's now fill in the lean states for Red Eagle politics, and there's quite some, because there's many of these states where I think that that Red Eagle politics would be able to appeal to a lot of these voters. So those are of the 3 states that the district that UEP just filled in. I would also add the state of Georgia. However, we'll talk that when he fills it in and we can discuss it. But essentially, Texas, they like more of, it's either you're kind of a conservative candidate or you're completely with the Democrats. In some way, I mean, that's the kind of sentiment there is in the state of Texas. So I think Red Eagle will probably carry, at least with border security and all that. I mean, there's a big movement, especially in these border states, that on one hand, you have Democrats who want to do certain things with border security, while Republicans want to do something completely different. So I think he could appeal to those voters that are looking for a growth of border security. Not saying that Democrats are going to have open borders or anything, but I mean, I think that his policy would be stronger, and I think he would probably have a little bit more support than Trump does currently in Texas. Iowa, again, Midwestern appeal, and that is another state like Ohio. I would say that Ohio and Iowa go kind of hand in hand, as they're truly conservative states. It's just that when the right candidate runs for the Democrats, they're able to push up margins and probably flip the state. And Wisconsin, right next door from Michigan, this is a swing state in the Rust Belt that is the most talked about, and it's essentially most Republican, and they had a lot of Republicans statewide before the 2018 midterms. Just with that appeal that he has for that Midwestern voter, I think that he could win there by 2 to 3 points. So UEP?
Okay, now Texas, I do think that actually that Red Eagle would underperform Trump. I characterize Texas as a likely Trump state for 2020. I do think that Red Eagle would underperform Trump a tad bit, like 1%, something like that. Just because LTE would, again, bring this up a lot, have the ability to carry the Hispanic vote, and also, have appeal to moderates, like moderate conservatives. Nebraska 2nd District, it's kind of a part of the Midwest, also kind of not. It's hard to classify because we don't have a ton of polling data on it, for example. But I'm going to give it to Red Eagle, him being from Michigan, having the appeal there. I think it would be competitive, but I don't think that Red Eagle would really lose it. Iowa, Iowa and Ohio, like Purple said, do tend to vote together, but I think the one reason I'm saying Iowa is going to be lean, first of all, I think Ohio would be like a 5.5% margin of victory for Red Eagle. Iowa would be something like a little less than 5. And I'm saying that because Iowa actually does like moderates more than Ohio does now. Ohio likes to vote, very populist Republicans or very progressive Democrats like Sherrod Brown, for example, Marcia Fudge, those type Democrats. Whereas Iowa likes more moderate candidates, and I'm not saying that Red Eagle would lose. I just think the LTE would have more appeal to the Iowa voter than the Ohio voter. Also, Democrats actually in the midterms did well. They actually won the popular vote in the House elections in Iowa in 2018, whereas in Ohio they couldn't even flip a district. So, I do think there's hope for Democrats in Iowa, but they're not the favorites there. So Wisconsin, Wisconsin, I do think it would go to Red Eagle. Him being from Michigan would certainly help him. Again, he has the appeal to those voters, so yeah, I just give it to him. Purple. And I do think LTE would carry Minnesota by a tilt margin. Red Eagle will make it closer. He has appeal to those voters, but I still think he'd win it. LTE. This is 2020. Like, I know it's not realistic, and that's not the point. But this being a blue state, at heart, I think would nearly go to LTE. Now, Trump made it pretty contested in 2016. He only lost it by 2% or a little less than that. And I think Red Eagle would do a similar thing, but still come up short. The Republicans have not won a presidential election here since 1972. Even when Ronald Reagan won every single state except for Minnesota and D.C. Walter Mondale still won Minnesota. Michigan. This is a weird one because Red Eagle is from Michigan, but this is still a blue state, and in the 2020 presidential election, I do think it'll vote to the left of Minnesota barely, and I know not a lot of people don't think this because it went to Trump in 2016, but they have a large block of black voters, and in the midterms, Democrats actually did better in Michigan than they did in Minnesota. So that being said, it'll be very close. This is usually a lean/likely Democrat state, but Red Eagle being from Michigan, having the Rust Belt appeal to some of these voters, I think he'd be able to make it very, very close, but fall short.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to agree with you, at least on the Minnesota call. I differ a little bit in opinion with the state of Michigan. I think that maybe Red Eagle could carry it narrowly. However, it is his home state, and I think that if he can carry a state like Wisconsin by a lean margin, I think it's very likely that he could carry the state of Michigan by a tilt margin. We're gonna show the differences in our opinion in the map.
This is my map, by the way.
Yeah. So because we're talking about his map, we agree for most stuff, but I would just show you at the end some things that would currently change. Do you want to fill in the rest of the states if there are any for LT?
I forgot one district. It's Maine's 2nd district, and this is I do expect this to go to Donald Trump in the 2020 presidential election. But LTE being from Maryland and being strong in the Northeast, I think he'd be able to carry it.
So since he has a lot of Northeastern appeal, and I think that's something that Red Eagle politics lacks. And it's not a huge detriment to his campaign, just because of the fact that he's not going to be campaigning all the time up there, because most of the swing states are actually in his home turf in the Midwest. So, essentially that's going to hurt him. He loses one electoral, but he's probably going to focus and shift his focus to the Midwest, which will give him many more electoral votes. So, let's move on to the tilt states for Red Eagle politics.
And again, this is my prediction, and I know me and Purple have a staunch disagreement on one state, and we'll talk about that at the very end, but my prediction is we're going to give Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Florida to LT. We're going to talk to Red Eagle. We're going to talk about North Carolina in a second, but Pennsylvania, him being from Michigan, Pennsylvania, I do think will vote to the left of Wisconsin, but to the right of Michigan, which sounds about right to me. And for Red Eagle, I think he'd win it barely, by something like Trump won in 2016. LT is not the strongest candidate for the Midwest, but he is from Maryland, so I think he would make it closer than it would be if he was from, say, Nevada or Oregon or California. So I do think it'll be close, but I think Red Eagle will edge it out. In Georgia, Georgia tends to like establishment-type neocons, I guess you could say, but Red Eagle is not that, as we all know. But this is still a red state. There will be voter suppression as long as Brian Kemp is governor, and I do think it will narrowly go to Red Eagle. And I do think the Red Eagle would underperform Donald Trump by a little bit in this state. Now, let's leave Florida. I could really see Florida going to LTE, but I think Red Eagle would be able to carry it, having a lot of enthusiasm from the Panhandle, whereas LTE wouldn't be able to, bring out the big numbers from like Miami-Dade or Broward County. Now, Purple, I'll let you talk.
So I'm going to have to disagree. I mean, with the tilt states, this is where we come with our major disagreements. I honestly think with at least with the red tilt states, and especially in the South, I mean, Georgia and Florida, I think that Red Eagle politics could make the margin in the lead, maybe 2-3% in both Georgia and Florida. Yes, these states are going to be close. However, LT doesn't bring out the black support that much, and I think that's going to hurt him when it comes to probably becoming close in the state of Georgia. And when it comes to Florida, LT doesn't really have any appeal. Well, Red Eagle politics does a lot. And I think what's going to hurt LT in this election would be Florida and the southern counties where he needs to overperform to win. He's not going to get that support. So at the end, we're going to, again, like I said, show the differences in our map. And yeah, so let's talk about North Carolina.
Okay, I'm going to go first because this is my prediction. Now, hear me out. North Carolina, it's sometimes weird to see a state like North Carolina going to a Democrat, whereas Florida isn't. But this is essentially what happened in 2008, where Democrats did pretty poorly. And I was actually looking this up because me and Purple were debating this, North Carolina, Florida. Democrats actually did not too great at the House level in Florida in 2008, but they did very well in North Carolina, and they actually did win a Senate race there. So I do think North Carolina, LTE being a moderate, being from Maryland, which is kind of close to North Carolina, and just generally speaking, some of these other states like North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama tend to like more establishment type Republicans, but will come out to vote for someone like Red Eagle politics because Alabama is a red state. It's not going to even be close, for example. But I think North Carolina is a swing state. Well, we all know it's a swing state, and I do think that LT would be able to carry it narrowly over Red Eagle. I also do think that LT could in this scenario, Florida would be a pure toss up, but I'm going to give Red Eagle the edge because of his support in the Panhandle. But going back to North Carolina, my one last thing that I want to say. North Carolina is going quickly. They're getting more and more college-educated voters, suburbs. They now have a Democrat governor for the first time in a while. And I think the suburbs would turn out for LT in overwhelming numbers over Red Eagle. And that would propel him to victory in North Carolina. So I'll let Purple talk, but before he does, I want all of you to comment down. Who do you think would win in North Carolina?
Yeah. So, this is like, we're going to go through, like, some of the changes I would like to make this map.
Okay.
I would like to, make North Carolina tilt Red Eagle politics, because I think that Red Eagle politics, he would honestly appeal to the voter. I mean, yeah, you're talking about 2008, and 2008 was 12 years ago. The country has shifted completely, and we're not in the same North Carolina. Yeah, there's an influx of college-educated voters, but LT is not the person like an Obama that would come out and bring voters by the masses. Yeah, he would bring some appeal with some of the white college-educated voters. However, I mean, I think that Red Eagle politics would run on the same message that Trump ran in 2016, which won him the race. And I think, honestly, I would give him the edge here. I would give him the edge here. It's Hillary Clinton, but again, Hillary Clinton, she had more excitement, or similar excitement that I think LT would create. I mean, and believe it or not, Hillary Clinton did actually create excitement. It's just that it's very interesting to see. And I think that Red Eagle politics would carry the state. I would also have to disagree with you, at least in Florida and Georgia, because those two states, well, they do have hints of democratic movements, and it's that these states, yeah, they somewhat like establishments, but over like a Democrat, I think still, especially in Florida where LT doesn't really bring support that is needed to make the margins super close amongst Latinos. I think that honestly, Red Eagle politics are carried Florida by 2%, and Georgia again, since LT is not overly appealing to the Black community, I think the more rural and the more like conservative suburban voters will vote for Red Eagle politics. Other than that, I think this would be my map, and I would say this is what my current prediction looks like between Red Eagle politics and LT. I think Red Eagle politics narrowly wins. It would be a tight race, but I think Red Eagle politics would win. Again, me and UEP's opinions differ, especially more at the end. However, things can change. And then one more wildcard state I would say would be the state of Michigan. depends on how much support. I think he could honestly win there.
He could.
Other than that, I mean, that's pretty much it, I would say. And I think that this election would be interesting to see how it plays out. And it honestly, this race did not come down to who do we like more in politics, YouTube. It's more who has the more support or who would have a better message. It's spreading that message. And I think in this scenario, considering the current state of the country and how different regions of the country are voting, Ready Go Politics would win. So, yeah, that was my prediction. Mine was at 279 for Ready Go Politics. If I'm correct, everything else went to LTE. UEP was that. Do you want to talk about yours at the end?
Yeah, so I'll just say this is my prediction. I gave Red Eagle 263 to LTE's 275. I really could see Florida going to LTE, but I also could see Michigan going to Red Eagle, so I'm just going to leave it at that. And guys, thanks for watching this video. I'm currently at 505 subscribers. Purple's at 514. Let's get us both to 600 by September 15th. 600 by September 15th. That's a little less than a month. I think we can do it, guys. So if you're watching this video and aren't subscribed to us, please do. Be sure to like the video and turn on post notifications so you don't miss any time that we post a video.
And yeah, I mean, also remember, if you have something to say, go down to the comments. And we can all have a civilized discussion about politics. And we can all enjoy talking about politics, especially this scenario where there's a lot of Red Eagle fans and a lot of LTE fans. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video, and goodbye.